Maybe death wasn't as terrifying as loving the wrong creature, the kind the whole galaxy once labeled as cursed. The moment Raine Maddox crashed onto Thorn, he was already thinking about food. Not survival protocol. Not distress signals. Not even the fact that his oxygen levels were dropping faster than his pulse. No, just food. That tells you a lot about a man. Or maybe it tells you everything about crash landings. They always come when you haven't had lunch. He didn't even see the blast coming. 1 second his survey shuttle was on autopilot above the outer rim, logging radiation traces. The next, a blinding burst of blue-green light tore through his console, lit up the cabin like a fireworks show from hell, and sent him spiraling down toward a planet that on every map had been circled in red and labeled, "Do not approach." Thorn. A planet soaked in legend, ghost stories, and a kill-on-sight advisory that made it the Bermuda Triangle of the Quadrant. Abandoned colonies. Mutated life forms. No verified survivors. Raine always figured that was the kind of hype the Terran government liked to slap on anything they couldn't control. Now, as branches the size of shuttle wings tore past his cockpit and impact alarms howled in his ears, he was starting to suspect it wasn't just hype. The crash was more like a crunch. Metal screaming. Trees snapping. Then, everything went black. He came to with a pounding headache, blood crusted above his right brow, and a piece of something, hopefully bark, not bone, jammed into his side. The smell hit him first, something pungent and oddly sweet, like rotting fruit and copper. Then the heat, wet, suffocating, and alive. He blinked against the pulsing shadows. The forest wasn't quiet. It breathed. Plants pulsed in and out with slow, deliberate rhythm. Vines twitched. A tree nearby shifted like it was stretching in its sleep. Thorn wasn't just alive, it was watching. He tried to move. Bad idea. Pain flared up his leg and he collapsed back with a curse. Okay. So, broken leg. At least one rib fractured. Helmet missing. Emergency comms? Fried. The wrist display blinked red with mockery. Perfect. That's when he saw her. At first, he thought she was part of the forest. Standing too still, too quiet. Tall. Lithe. Barefoot. Her skin shimmered like liquid jade under the filtered light, and her long white hair drifted in the humidity like it had a mind of its own. No armor. No weapons. Just presence. Her eyes, if you could call them that, were silver orbs with no pupils, glowing faintly. They fixed on him with curiosity, but not the gentle kind. The kind you see in predators who haven't decided whether you're worth eating yet. Raine swallowed. Hey, he rasped, lifting a trembling hand. You friendly? Or just here to watch me die with style? She didn't answer. Just tilted her head. Then, with terrifying calm, she stepped closer, knelt beside him, and laid 2 fingers against his temple. The world blinked. Pain dulled. The burning in his side faded. A warmth not just physical but deeper, molecular spread through him. Her fingers glowed faintly, and Raine caught a whiff of ozone and starlight. Whoa, he murmured. That's either alien first aid, or a prelude to digestion. Still no response. She touched his leg, and something popped painfully, but then the ache ebbed into a numb throb. Raine gritted his teeth. Okay. Not a hallucination. Definitely not a hallucination. After a few minutes, she stood, took 3 steps back, and vanished into the foliage as silently as she came. Not a word. Not a sound. Leaving him more confused than comforted. He lay back, staring up at a sky half covered in bioluminescent canopy, and exhaled. What the hell was that? She had saved him. He was pretty sure of that. But why? Something told him it wasn't compassion. There was calculation in her eyes. As if she'd been expecting him. And that was somehow worse than being left to die. Raine closed his eyes. He had to rest. To think. To plan. But even as sleep pulled at him, one thought refused to leave. She was beautiful. Otherworldly. Dangerous. And absolutely the last thing he should be thinking about on a death planet like Thorn. But maybe, just maybe, death wasn't the worst fate here. Maybe it was what came after. Loving the cursed. Raine Maddox woke to the sound of dripping. Soft, rhythmic. Not water. Thicker. Slower. Like something bleeding out of stone. He opened his eyes to darkness that wasn't complete. Dim blue light pulsed faintly from the walls around him, stone, but laced with translucent vines that throbbed with a low bioluminescence. He was in a cave. Or something pretending to be one. Organic cables snaked through the rock like arteries. Some pulsed. Some twitched. None of them looked especially thrilled about sharing space with a human. His back ached. His ribs still throbbed, though the sharp edge of the pain had dulled. The leg was splinted, crudely but effectively. And someone had wrapped his side in a soft, flexible bandage that smelled like moss and static electricity. So, not dead. Yet. He sat up slowly, groaning. The space around him was strange. Not quite natural, not quite constructed. A blend of biology and design that made his brain itch. And then he saw her again. She sat cross-legged on a raised stone platform, just outside the reach of the faint glowing vines. Watching him. Same jade green skin. Same silver eyes, glowing with that eerie inner light. Same white hair, now tied loosely at the base of her neck, like she'd bothered to groom herself while he was unconscious. Because priorities. Hey, he said softly, raising a hand. So. Still not gonna talk, huh? Nothing. Not a twitch. Not even a smirk. She just stared. Calm. Assessing. Like a cat watching a bug decide if it wants to fly into the fan. Raine rubbed the back of his neck. I mean, don't get me wrong, I appreciate the rescue. The cave. The moss bandages. But I gotta admit, it's hard to trust someone who looks like a goddess and acts like a murder drone. Still nothing. He looked around, spotting a half-hollowed fruit-like pod beside him. Inside was a viscous blue liquid. It smelled like mint and battery acid. His stomach growled. Is that for me? Or is it bait? She tilted her head, just slightly. Cool. So we're doing charades. Got it. He sipped it. It burned. Then fizzed. Then cooled. Surprisingly good, if you like your meals with a side of mild electrical current. He nodded to her. Thanks. She blinked slowly. Minutes passed. Then, without a word, she stood and walked toward the edge of the cave. A section of the wall parted like petals, revealing a narrow passage overgrown with vines. She looked back at him. Not with impatience. More like invitation. Raine sighed. Right. Because staying here alone on a murder planet would be too easy. He got up. Hobbled after her. The passage led into a marsh. The light dimmed. Air thickened. Sound warped, muffled and distant, like being underwater. Every leaf glistened. Every shadow moved a little too much. She moved ahead of him like a whisper. Effortless. Almost floating. Raine, on the other hand, limped like a guy with 1.5 good legs and zero idea what the hell he was doing. Then they heard it. A squelch. A slow, sucking splash. Something moving through the water that wasn't them. Syra froze. So did Raine. The sound came again closer. She turned to him, held up her hand. Flat. Still. Stay. He nodded. She moved silently into the mist. 1 step. 2. Raine crouched behind a large, gnarled root, hard hammering. The water around them rippled, faint but insistent. Then he saw it. A creature. Slithering. Hulking. A mass of wet, glistening tendrils, like someone had set a swamp on fire and then taught it how to crawl. It had no face. Just a round, gaping maw filled with teeth that spiraled inward like a nightmare blender. It moved toward Syra. She waited. Closer. Then, with a movement so fast Raine barely registered it, she leapt twisting midair, landing atop the thing's back. Her hand glowed. She slammed it down. The creature shrieked. It reared. She held on, digging her fingers into its pulsing hide. And then Raine did the dumbest, bravest thing he could think of. He grabbed a shard of stone and threw it. Hard. It hit the beast's flank. Just enough to draw attention. Just enough to piss it off. The creature spun, flinging Syra off. She landed hard but rolled to her feet with a grace Raine couldn't dream of. It lunged toward him now. Yep, he muttered. Knew that was dumb. He braced. But Syra was faster. She darted between them, eyes blazing, hands glowing brighter now, pure white light laced with crackling arcs. She thrust both palms forward. The blast knocked the creature back 10 meters. It hissed, twitched, then finally stopped moving. Silence fell. Raine stared at her, breathless. Okay, he whispered. Maybe you don't talk. But damn, you say plenty. She didn't smile. But her eyes softened. Just a little. And in that moment, he realized something else. She didn't save him because she had to. She stayed because she wanted to. They entered the forest like people walking into a memory they hadn't lived yet. Raine didn't know the name of the place. But he could feel it. The moment his boot touched the mossy floor, something shifted. The air thickened not just with moisture, but with weight. Emotion. A sense of being watched and listened to. Syra glanced back at him once, eyes glowing dimly. No words. No gestures. Just a look that said, "Keep your mind quiet." The trees here weren't like the others. Their trunks were wide, gnarled, and webbed with root systems that didn't just stay underground. They rose, snaked along the surface, curved up the sides of other trees, and pulsed faintly with a soft violet glow. Raine reached out to touch one. Mistake. A shock, not of pain, but memory hit him like a wave. He gasped, stumbling back, heart thudding. He was 12 again. On Earth. Sitting in the back of a rusted transport van, staring out at the endless junk fields near Marsport. His mother's voice soft, tired, whispering, "You're meant for more than scrap runs, Raine." He blinked. The vision faded. Syra stood still nearby, hands clenched. Her breathing had changed, sharper, erratic. Her eyes locked on something Raine couldn't see. She stepped forward, touched a root, and crumpled to her knees. Her body trembled. Lips parted in a silent scream. Raine rushed forward and hesitated. The vines around her glowed brighter, almost eager. He crouched beside her, careful not to touch the roots again. "Syra," he whispered. "Hey. You in there?" She gasped. Her hands clutched the earth. And then he saw it. Not through his eyes. Through hers. A flood of images hit him. Fire raining from the sky. Great cities, organic and shimmering, burning to ash. The screams of 1,000 voices echoing through a crystalline chamber. Her people. Tall, beautiful, glowing with the same strange energy that lived in her now. Dying. One by one. And in the center of it all, Syra, a child, curled in a shattered transport pod, watching her mother disintegrate into light. Raine fell backward, gasping. His head throbbed. His chest ached, not from injury, but from grief that wasn't his. "What the hell?" he breathed. "That wasn't mine." She stood slowly, shaking. Her eyes were wide now, flickering. And for the first time, Raine saw fear in them, not of danger, but of him. "Was that you?" he asked. "Did you show me that?" She didn't answer. Just turned and started walking. He followed. The forest thickened. The light dimmed. The trees whispered. Raine heard laughter. Not Syra's. His own. From a lifetime ago. He passed a tree that looked exactly like the one he climbed as a kid. Then a rock that shouldn't be there, until he realized it was shaped like the memorial stone from his unit on Terra 6. This place didn't remember the world. It remembered him. He didn't ask how. They came to a clearing. Vines formed a loose circle, writhing like snakes asleep. In the center stood a massive, bulbous growth like a tumor made of stone and bark. It pulsed. Syra stepped forward. And the mass moved. From its underside, limbs unfolded. 6. Then 8. Then too many. Eyes opened, dozens blinking wetly. a mouth unsealed like a fruit splitting open. Rows of spiral teeth. Raine froze. Oh no. Nope. I know a boss fight when I see one. The creature screeched. Syra raised one hand. The glow returned, but not like before. It was brighter. Fiercer. Her entire arm lit up, pulsing from shoulder to fingertip with a blinding white gold energy. She stepped forward. Raine grabbed her wrist. Wait. You don't have to. She turned, eyes locking with his. And he heard it. A voice. In his head. Not a word. A feeling. A message. Clear. This is mine to end. He let go. She moved like lightning. The vines recoiled. The beast lunged. She met it head on, slamming her glowing hand into its core. It shrieked a sound so loud it cracked the air and writhed, convulsed, and collapsed into itself. Dead. The light in her arm faded. She staggered. Raine caught her. She didn't resist. Just breathed. Deep. Shaky. Okay, he said softly. You win. You're terrifying and amazing and also maybe slightly radioactive. She looked up at him. This time, a smile. Small. Real. And he felt it again. That link. Not thoughts. Not speech. Just connection. It was starting to scare him. And maybe, just maybe, that's how he knew it was real. The storm came without warning. One moment the forest hummed with eerie calm. The next, a magnetic pulse tore through the air like a living scream. Trees bent unnaturally. The ground quaked. Vines coiled tight around anything metal, and the sky above split in arcs of violet lightning. Syra didn't flinch. She just grabbed Raine's wrist and pulled. They ran. Or rather she ran, and he stumbled behind like a sack of limbs held together with sarcasm and adrenaline. The wind howled. Electromagnetic surges fried his wrist with a pathetic puff of smoke. Sparks danced in his hair. His leg burned. They dove into a shattered dome half swallowed by the earth-old metal, cracked glass, and synthetic roots grown in through the ceiling like veins through bone. A station. Pre-war. Long dead. But not empty. Flickers of power still echoed in the walls. Holograms blinked in and out like ghosts. Monitors pulsed weakly. The door sealed behind them with a hiss and a thud. Safe. For now. Raine collapsed onto the floor, panting. I'm starting to think your planet hates visitors. Syra looked at him, then at her arm. Blood. A deep gash along her forearm, glowing faintly at the edges. He crawled over, grabbing a half-torn medpack from his belt. Let me help. She hesitated. Then nodded. The silence was full of static and breath. He cleaned the wound as gently as he could, dabbing with sterilizer, watching her jaw twitch as she fought not to react. Her skin was warm. Not like human warmth, more like the warmth of something alive in a way deeper than biology. I used to patch up my unit, he muttered. Except they were loud, drunk, and usually bleeding from bar fights. Syra glanced at him. Her lips curled slightly. almost a smile. He threaded a thin synthetic suture through a field needle. This might sting. She didn't flinch as he worked. Just kept watching him, her eyes tracing his face like she was reading something not written in words. After a while, he said, "That memory you showed me. The burning cities. The screams. That was your home." She nodded. "Your family." Another nod. Then, finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Raspy, musical. Velari. He stopped stitching. Looked up. "You're Velari." She met his gaze. "Was. Once." He sat back slowly. "I thought your people were all gone. Lost in the bio-bombing." "They are." Something about the way she said it, simple, final, made the silence sharper. "I was meant to die with them," she said. "My father sent me away. Said the line must live. But the line means nothing now." Raine let the words sit between them. The hum of broken machinery filled the space. He didn't speak again until the last stitch was in. "There. Not bad, for a guy who failed med school twice." She looked at the wound, then at him. "Thank you." He blinked. "You do talk." Her smile was sad. "Only when it matters." They sat like that for a while. Raine on the floor, Syra beside him, Storm screaming against the reinforced dome above. Something shifted. Maybe it was the way her shoulder leaned just slightly toward his. Or the way their knees almost touched. Or the quiet rhythm of two hearts beating in sync. He looked at her. She looked back. He leaned in slowly, gently, as if waiting for the world to object. She didn't pull away. Their lips brushed. Brief. Electric. And then, an alarm. A shrill, rising tone from one of the wall panels. The hologram above it flickered to life, showing a blip. Moving. Fast. Toward them. Raine pulled back, heart racing. "Well," he said. "Romance is dead." Syra was already standing, eyes scanning the display. He followed. "What is it?" She didn't answer immediately. Her face hardened. "Hunting signal. Tracking us." "Great," Raine muttered. "Of course it is. We kiss once and suddenly it's open season." She looked at him, and despite the tension, her expression softened. "Next time," she said, "we don't stop." Raine smiled quick and crooked. "Deal." The entrance to the lower level wasn't hidden, just forgotten. A cracked panel near the back of the old station flickered when Syra passed her hand across it. Symbols lit up. Not in Terran standard, but in Velari script, elegant, looping characters that pulsed like veins beneath skin. She didn't hesitate. Just pressed her palm flat. The floor shuddered. Then split open. Raine stared. "Okay, that's new." A staircase uncoiled beneath them, formed from stone and old alloy, spiraling downward into a black shaft that breathed cold air. Syra glanced back once. Her face unreadable. But her steps were steady. Raine followed. Because of course he did. The descent was long. The air grew colder, denser. The walls were covered in moss and fiber-optic roots, glittering like stars trapped in vines. Somewhere deep beneath them, machinery hummed a resonance that wasn't just heard, but felt, like bones remembering something they'd rather not. At the bottom, the path opened into a chamber. Not a lab. A tomb. The ceiling was high and arched, made of fused obsidian and bone metal. Cylindrical tanks lined the walls, broken and blackened. Inside, remnants of something that had once been alive. Some were still shaped like people. Velari. Syra froze. She walked slowly now. Reverently. Past the ruined pods, past skeletal frames of experimentation, twisted limbs, fused spines, traces of light still lingering in the bones. Raine felt a chill settle in his chest. This was a research site. No, Syra whispered. It was a slaughterhouse. At the center of the room was a sphere. Floating. Black at its core, ringed with shifting runes and a halo of slow-turning light. It pulsed in time with Raine's heartbeat. Or maybe his heartbeat had fallen in time with it. He couldn't tell. Syra stepped forward. The sphere flared. A voice, not sound, but thought, filled the room. Syra's body trembled. Her breath hitched. Raine stepped closer, instincts screaming. "What is that?" "A relic," Syra said, her voice hollow. "The last mind fragment of the Velari elders. Stored in quantum stasis. It remembers everything," the voice said. Raine's hands curled into fists. "Sleeper? What sleeper?" The chamber dimmed. The air thickened. Syra swayed. Raine looked at her. "Contain what?" Her eyes met his and they weren't hers anymore. Not entirely. They glowed brighter than before. Swirling. Alive. "Something they made," she said softly. "Something they feared." The relic pulsed again. Images shot into Raine's head of a being made of shifting light and hunger, unbound by time, capable of devouring ecosystems and rewriting DNA like language. A living apocalypse. And inside it, Syra's face. Younger. Innocent. Watching. "I don't," Raine backed away. "You're saying it's in you?" Syra looked down. "Not all of it. Not yet. But the seal is weakening." Raine's throat tightened. "You knew?" She nodded. "For how long?" "Since before I met you?" He laughed. It came out bitter. "Great. So I've been camping with a time bomb." She didn't flinch. "You were never in danger?" "Tell that to the death sphere?" The relic pulsed again. Raine stared at it. Then at her. His voice cracked. "What do we do?" Syra stepped forward, gently took his hand. "We run." "For how long?" Her smile was small. Tragic. "Until there's nowhere left to hide." The dropships came at dusk. Not subtle. Not silent. They tore through the sky like falling knives, engines howling, lights flaring, wind slicing through the jungle canopy. Raine and Syra saw them before they heard them, dark blots against a burning sky. Syra stiffened. Raine stepped forward. Terran markings. Military grade. He exhaled. Relief. Or something like it. Rescue. For half a second, it felt like the universe remembered he existed. The first soldier to emerge was tall, armored, and already annoyed. A long scar ran down his cheek like someone had once tried to erase his face and gave up halfway. "Raine Maddox," he barked. Raine nodded slowly. "Depends who's asking." The man didn't smile. Just signaled to the others. A squad fanned out behind him, weapons ready. "You're lucky. We tracked your crash. Came to extract you." Raine's eyes flicked to Syra. She hadn't moved. Not an inch. "She comes too." The scarred man looked at Syra, then back at Raine. "She's not human. She's with me." A pause. Then a nod. "Fine. Too easy." They walked together toward the evac ship. Syra silent. Raine uneasy. The ship's ramp opened. Bright interior. Too sterile. Too quiet. Then he saw it. In the corner. A containment field already activated. And a sedative injector waiting beside it. He stopped. "What's that?" Scarface didn't blink. "Protocol. She's not coming aboard conscious. She's not dangerous." He laughed once. "Cold. Everything on this rock is dangerous." Syra stepped back. Just slightly. Raine moved in front of her. "You want to help me, fine. But you're not taking her like cargo." Weapons lifted. "You're not in command here, Maddox. Stand down." Syra whispered. "Let them." He turned. "What? If it gets you off this world?" "No." Her eyes were calm. "It's okay." He looked at her. Then back at them. He stepped aside. They moved in fast. Too fast. She didn't resist. Not when they cuffed her. Not when they jabbed the needle in. Not when her knees buckled and she collapsed like a fallen star. Raine stood frozen. Mouth dry. Hands clenched. They carried her into the ship. He followed, silent. Until he heard it. A whisper. Not sound. Thought. "Run." Then he saw the monitor. The logs. The crew notes. Subject extraction, priority alpha. Corpse acceptable. Brain must remain intact. His blood went cold. He didn't think. He acted. Elbow to the closest soldier's throat. Grab. Twist. Disarm. Blaster in hand. Alarms flaring. Screams. He ran. Through smoke and sparks, he reached the containment bay. 2 soldiers were prepping her for deep freeze. Not anymore. 3 shots. 1 warning. 2 permanent. He lifted her. She was light. Too light. Her eyes fluttered. Half conscious. "Why?" she whispered. He held her closer. "Because I'm not losing you." Rain began to fall as they burst out of the ship. The jungle was alive again, howling, shifting. The Terrans followed. But they weren't the only predators. The storm called the others. From the trees, creatures emerged, fangs and tendrils, bone plates glistening. Ancient things. Born of the same madness that birthed the planet itself. The soldiers fired. The creatures screamed. Chaos. Raine ran. Syra woke in his arms. Just enough. She reached out, energy crackled at her fingertips. A wall of light erupted behind them, halting the advance. Temporary. He ducked under roots, leapt over ruins, slid through mud. Until they reached the cliffs. The drop below was a river. Savage. Deep. He looked at her. Trust me. She smiled weakly. Always. They jumped. The sky burned above. The forest screamed below. But in that fall, they were together. And that was enough to survive another day. They didn't fall far. The river caught them barely. Cold and wild and deeper than it had any right to be. Raine remembered flashes. Foam. Rocks. Syra's limp hand still clutched in his. Then darkness. They woke on a bank of black sand. The jungle above was still screaming, but more distant now. They had floated far too far for the Terrans to follow. Syra stirred first. Eyes glassy. Distant. Her skin shimmered with a light Raine hadn't seen before. Not warm. Not familiar. Wrong. He crawled to her, soaked and shaking. Syra, he whispered. Hey. You with me? She sat up. Didn't answer. Didn't blink. Then she stood. Her feet barely touched the ground. Her body lifted slightly, gravity second-guessing itself. The air around her thickened. A pulse of pressure rippled out from her chest, bending the trees. Her eyes opened wide. And they weren't hers anymore. Brilliant white and gold, swirling like twin galaxies. Her voice echoed in tones layered on top of each other. The seal is undone. Raine stood, heart hammering. Syra, stop. This isn't you. She looked at him, but through him. Not hate. Not love. Just absence. The jungle answered her call. A creature burst from the foliage 20 feet tall, a horror of bone and sinew, glowing with the same light as her. It didn't roar. It didn't breathe. It simply existed. And moved toward them. Syra raised one hand. The beast obeyed. Raine stepped forward. Not to run. Not to fight. To speak. I know you're in there. No response. I know this isn't what you wanted. Still nothing. He stepped closer. I saw your memories. I held your hand. You saved me more times than I can count. So if I have to give you something now, it's this. He dropped the weapon. And opened his arms. Take me instead. For a second, just a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then her hand trembled. Her breath caught. The glow around her cracked, like a shell breaking. Raine, her voice, real again. Small. He smiled. I'm still here. She fell to her knees. The creature howled. It charged. Syra screamed not in fear, but in defiance. Energy burst from her core in waves, golden and raw. But not wild. Controlled. Focused. She rose with the storm she created. And the ancient system responded. The ground split open. Pillars of obsidian rose from the earth. Symbols ignited across their surfaces. A hum filled the air, low, steady, ancient. A dome of light erupted around them. The beast hit the barrier and shattered into dust. Silence followed. Then the light faded. Syra collapsed. Raine caught her, barely. They sat there, in the ruin of power and silence. She was breathing. So was he. Sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean to scare you. He laughed once, soft and shaken. You only looked like a sun goddess about to vaporize the planet. I've had worse first dates. Her lips curled. Then the tears came. Silent, glowing, like the last of the storm. He held her tighter. They had survived the awakening. But something had changed. And they both knew it. The signal flared at dawn. A rescue ship. Real, this time. Not another Terran trap or ghost transmission. Its beacon pierced the haze of the jungle like a flare of memory, sharp, unexpected, impossible to ignore. Syra sensed it before Raine did. Her body stiffened. Her eyes, though dimmer now, still carried that lingering shimmer of power barely restrained. They climbed slowly to the ridge above the valley. The ship hovered in the distance, sleek and white against the rising sun, its engines whispering instead of roaring, as if afraid to disturb whatever ancient thing still slept beneath the trees. A figure waved from the open ramp. Human. Genuine. Raine exhaled. His shoulders sagged. They had made it. He looked at her. She didn't move. Syra. She shook her head barely. I can't. His gut sank. What do you mean? Her voice was calm. Sad. This place, it's part of me now. More than memory. More than blood. My body's tied to this land. If I leave, you die. She nodded. The ship's lights flashed again. Closer now. Waiting. Raine looked between her and the vessel. Between a way out, and the reason he'd survived any of this in the first place. You could have told me. I thought I could break it. I thought I could choose. He sat down beside her. The jungle around them buzzed quietly, almost peacefully. I didn't come here to bury someone I care about. She smiled. You didn't. You brought her back. They sat for a while, just breathing. Then he stood. Walked 5 paces toward the ridge. Then stopped. He didn't look back when he said it. I spent most of my life floating between jobs, units, systems. Always waiting for something to feel like home. This rock's tried to kill me every day since I got here, and I still found more truth in your silence than in every speech I've ever heard. She turned to him. Raine. He smiled. I'm not going. And just like that, the signal faded behind them. They used what tech was left to build a small station, just enough to send warnings to nearby ships, pulses through the dark saying, "Stay away. Something ancient sleeps here." Something beautiful, too. They didn't speak of the end of the world anymore. They built a garden where the black sand met the roots of the forest. Syra's energy helped things grow faster, stranger. Colors Raine had never seen. Flowers that whispered if you listened just right. Sometimes, they danced. Clumsily, barefoot, to music neither of them remembered but somehow always knew. And sometimes, they just sat. Together. In silence. One morning, light broke through the clouds above the jungle. Real light. The first rays of unfiltered sun to reach this place in what must have been centuries. It hit the trees. The vines. The clearing. And them. She stood there, wrapped in mourning and silver. He stepped beside her, hand in hers. She leaned into him, eyes closed, whispering something only the forest could hear. And Raine just watched her glow. He didn't need to understand everything. He didn't need to fix it. He just needed to be here. With her. She wasn't human. And he wasn't the man who'd crashed here. But in that clearing, beneath the newborn sun, they were real. And that was enough.